My family kicked me out because my sister falsely accused me of stealing her engagement ring. 3 years later, they discovered it in the garbage disposal. I never thought I'd be recounting this story, but here goes. I'm Elliot, and 3 years ago, my life was turned upside down by a bogus complaint filed by my older sister Gemma, 29. I grew up in a little Ohio town with my parents, John 55, Lisa 53, and my sister Gemma. We lived in a modest 2-story house that my parents bought when they first got married. It wasn't luxurious, but it was home. My father taught high school math, while my mother worked as a nurse at the local hospital. They were not wealthy, but they ensured we had all we needed. Growing up, Gemma and I were quite close. We'd spend hours playing in our backyard, climbing the ancient oak tree and making up elaborate games. She was always in charge, drawing up the rules and narratives, while I was glad to follow along. As we grew older, however, things began to change. Gemma was always the overachiever. She was at the top of her class, captain of the debate team, and seemed to flourish in anything she did. In comparison, I was more relaxed. I did okay in school, but I was never as motivated as Gemma. As we entered adolescence, this discrepancy weakened our bond. By the time Gemma left for college, we'd grown apart. She received a scholarship to a prestigious university, whilst I remained in my hometown and attended community college. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life, so I took a variety of classes to figure it out. After graduating from college, Gemma moved to the city and started working for a huge marketing agency. She'd return home on holidays and weekends, full of stories about her intriguing life and successful career. I couldn't help feeling inadequate in comparison. I was still living at home, working part-time at the local grocery store, and figuring out my next move. Despite our differences, I had always imagined Gemma and I were all right. We weren't as close as we had once been, but I chalked it up to growing older. I had no idea how quickly things might go apart. Gemma and her boyfriend Tom, 31 million, got engaged 3 years ago. They'd been dating for 2 years, and everyone was thrilled. My parents idolized Tom, a lawyer from an affluent family. He proposed with a magnificent diamond ring that has been in his family for generations. Gemma was ecstatic and couldn't stop showing it off to everyone. The engagement celebration was a large event. My parents invited everyone in town to celebrate with us. I remember feeling a little out of place among the wealthy guests Gemma and Tom had invited from the city. I stayed close to my old high school friends who were still in town, feeling more comfortable with them than with Gemma's sophisticated attire. A month after the engagement, all hell broke out. It was Tuesday afternoon and I had the day off from work. I was in my room, playing video games and enjoying the peaceful atmosphere. Gemma was visiting for a week, taking some time off from work to start planning the wedding with our mother. I heard Gemma coming home after her shopping expedition with Mom. They were chatting and joking downstairs. I didn't think much of it and went back to my game. Approximately an hour later, I heard Gemma scream. When I hurried downstairs to see what was going on, she accused me of removing her engagement ring. She explained that she took it off while doing dishes and placed it on the kitchen counter. She returned to get it, but it was gone. I was surprised and instantly denied taking it, but Gemma wouldn't listen. She kept screaming that I was the only other person in the house, so it must have been me. She added that I was always envious of her success and that I probably wanted to sell the ring so that I could finally leave and do something with my life. Our parents returned home amid the uproar, and Gemma related her version of events. To my horror, they fully believed her. My mother started crying, wondering how I could have done such a thing to my own sister. My father only looked at me with disappointment in his eyes. They started searching my room, turning everything upside down. They didn't find the ring, but they did find some money I had saved from working at the grocery. It wasn't much, maybe a few hundred, but Gemma soon caught up on it, stating I must have sold the ring and that's how the money came in. I attempted to explain that I had been saving for months and was thinking about taking some classes at the local community college, but no one listened. The next few days were a nightmare. My parents and Gemma were pressing me to confess and return the ring. They threatened to call the police if I did not come clean. I was terrified and felt completely alone. Nobody in my family believed me, and I was treated like a criminal inside my own home. I tried to call several of my friends, but the majority of them had moved away after high school. The few people who remained in town appeared unwilling to become involved in family conflicts. I felt more alone than ever. After a week of constant accusations and threats, my parents made a decision that changed my life forever. They told me I needed to go. They said they couldn't trust me anymore and that I was bringing dishonor to the family. They told me 2 days to pack up my possessions and depart. I was devastated. I had nowhere to go and wasn't sure what to do. My best high school friend Ryan, 26 male, who had recently returned to town after serving in the army, offered to let me sleep on his couch for a while. But I knew I couldn't remain too long. His apartment was modest, and he was just getting back on his feet. I packed all I could into a backpack and an old duffel bag, including clothes, books, my laptop, and a few mementos from happier days. As I was leaving, I observed Gemma staring at me from her old bedroom window. I thought I saw a spark of doubt in her eyes, but she swiftly turned away. Walking out of that house, which was all I knew, was the most difficult thing I'd ever done. I felt betrayed and abandoned by those who were supposed to love me unconditionally. The saddest aspect was that I had done nothing wrong. I spent the following 2 months alternating between Ryan's couch and inexpensive motels as I could afford them. I grabbed any odd job I could find to make ends meet. I've worked as a dishwasher, a dog walker, and even for a few weeks on a construction site. It was a challenge, but I was determined to establish my innocence and achieve success on my own. Eventually, I secured a steady job at a warehouse on the outskirts of town. The job was difficult, the hours were long, but the income was consistent. The pay was not great, but it permitted me to rent a modest room in a shared house with other warehouse employees. I gradually tried to restore my life, but the anguish over what had transpired remained. I'd lie awake at night, replaying the events in my mind and wondering how they had gone so wrong. How could my family have turned on me so quickly? How could Gemma, who had grown up with me and knew me better than anyone else, think I'd do such a thing? I ended all communication with my family. They tried to call me multiple times in the beginning. My mother would leave passionate voicemails encouraging me to return home and make things right. My father sent a few short text messages signaling that we needed to talk. Gemma did come to the warehouse once, but I declined to see her. I couldn't bear to talk to them after what they had done. They were no longer my family. I lived like this for 3 years. I met new people at work and in my shared house. We'd hang out after shifts to drink beer and watch games. It wasn't the life I had envisioned for myself, but it was mine, and I'd built it from scratch. I worked hard and was eventually promoted to shift supervisor at the warehouse. I began taking online courses to master business management. I was slowly deciding what I wanted to do with my life. But there was always a part of me that was angry and hurt by what had happened. I missed my former life and family, but I could not forgive them for not believing me. Every holiday season was tough. When I saw families shopping together or heard Christmas music, I felt saddened by what I had missed. Then, last week, I got an unexpected email from my dad. The subject line read simply, "We need to talk." The message was brief, explaining that they needed to meet with me immediately and that it was about the ring incident. At first, I was tempted to disregard it, just like I had with all of their previous attempts to contact me. But something made me hesitate. Maybe it was curiosity, or perhaps a small part of me still desired a resolution. After hours of battling with myself, I finally resolved to listen to them. I called my father, and what he said shocked me. The ring had been found. Gemma had accidentally knocked it into the garbage disposal while doing the dishes. She only realized this a few days ago, when the disposal started making strange noises and they called a plumber to inspect it. My father stated Gemma became furious when she realized what had happened and that I had been telling the truth all along. He explained that they all felt horrible about what they had done to me and wanted to make things right. I hung up the phone, feeling a mix of feelings. On the one hand, I felt vindicated because I had always told the truth, and now everyone knew. However, I was angry. I was enraged that it had taken 3 years to discover the truth, that I had lost so much time with my family, and that I had fought alone for so long when I had done nothing wrong. Now I'm at a crossroads. My family wants me to return home. They say they want to make things right. Gemma has been calling and messaging nonstop to ask for forgiveness. But I'm not sure I can forgive them. They shoved me out without hesitation, assumed the worst of me, and left me to fend for myself for 3 years. Part of me wants to send them all to hell and let them bear the guilt of what they did to me. But another part of me misses my prior life and wonders if there is any chance to reconstruct what we've lost. I don't know what to do. Should I give them a chance to make amends, or should I keep living the life I've built for myself without them? I'm torn and would appreciate some outside perspective on this entire situation. Update 1. It has been a week since my last post, and a lot has transpired. I'd want to thank everyone for their advice and support. It actually helped me process my emotions and decide what to do. After much thought, I decided to meet with my family. I felt I owed it to myself to confront them and seek closure, even if I wasn't convinced about reconciliation. We planned to meet in a neutral location, a small coffee shop in the next town over. I chose it because it was far enough away from our hometown that we would not run into anyone we knew, yet close enough that anyone could get there without much effort. I was very worried on the day of the meeting. I hadn't seen my family in 3 years and was unsure what to anticipate. I arrived at the coffee shop early and chose a table in the corner where we could have some privacy. When they walked in, it was like a punch in the gut. Seeing them after 3 years was intense. My mother burst into tears as soon as she saw me. She seemed older than I remembered, with grayer hair and lines around her eyes. My father looked sick and exhausted, his shoulders dropping as if he were carrying a heavy load. Gemma couldn't look me in the eyes at first. She seemed smaller and less confident than the sister I remembered. We sat down, and for a while, nobody knew what to say. They all began talking at once, with apologies tumbling out. My parents said they had failed as parents by not trusting me and kicking me out. They professed regretting their decision every day since, but pride and humiliation had kept them from reaching out sooner. My father, who had always been a man of few words, spent hours talking about how he had replayed those days in his mind, trying to figure out how he could have been so blind. He claimed he had always taken pride in being fair and rational, but emotion had clouded his judgment when it was most needed. My mother told me, through tears, how she had kept my room exactly as I had left it, hoping that one day I would return. She reported that she would wake up in the middle of the night, believing she had heard me arrive home, only to learn what had happened. Gemma went into tears, saying she would never forgive herself for accusing me and ruining our relationship. She said that she had always looked up to me when we were kids, even though I was younger. She admitted that she had been so absorbed with her own life and problems that she had lost sight of what was really essential. As they talked, memories from our childhood came flooding back. I remembered how Gemma stood up for me when I was bullied in middle school. I thought of all the times we'd laughed together, shared secrets, and supported each other through terrible times. It exacerbated the pain of betrayal while also reminding me of the wonderful times we'd shared. I heard what they said, but I couldn't bring myself to forgive them right away. The grief and fury from the preceding 3 years were too acute. I told them I needed time to process things. They appeared to understand and did not ask for more. My mother attempted to hug me before we left, but I backed away. I wasn't ready for that kind of closeness yet. The hurt look on her face almost persuaded me to reconsider my decision, but I stood firm. I needed to protect myself emotionally. After the meeting, I went back to my apartment and carefully contemplated what I wanted. Did I wish to return to my prior life? Can I ever trust them again? Was it worth striving to mend our relationship? I realized that, while I missed having a family, I had also grown substantially over the previous 3 years. I had become self-sufficient, strong, and had built a life for myself from scratch. I wasn't the same person they had kicked out 3 years ago. I thought about my warehouse job, online education, and the people I'd made. I worked hard to get where I was, and I felt proud of what I had accomplished on my own. The notion of quitting that and returning to my old life made me feel terrible. At the same time, I couldn't deny that seeing my family elicited a range of emotions. Despite everything, I continued to love and miss them. I pondered if I could be in a relationship with them while maintaining my independence. After a few days of deliberation, I made a decision. I phoned my parents and told them that, while I appreciated their apology, I wasn't ready to totally reconcile. I told them I needed more time and space to heal. I also set some boundaries. I stated that I was willing to retain minimal contact with them, but I wasn't going back home or pretending nothing happened. I informed them that if we were to continue our relationship, it would have to be on my terms. They expressed disappointment but acknowledged their understanding. They agreed to respect my boundaries and give me the time I needed. My mother asked if she might call me once a week to check in, and I agreed, figuring it would be a good way to gradually re-establish confidence. As for Gemma, I've opted to keep my distance for the time being. Her actions had had the greatest impact on me, and I was not yet ready to forgive her. I informed her that I needed more time before I could consider having another relationship with her. She was upset, but said she understood and would wait until I was ready. It's been a difficult week, with many emotional ups and downs. I've had moments when I doubted my decision, wondering if I'm being too harsh or if I'm giving up an opportunity to rejoin my family. But then I remember how quickly they turned against me, and I understand I'm doing the right thing by taking it slow. I've also been studying therapy possibilities. Many of you suggested it in the comments, and I believe it would be beneficial to consult with a professional while navigating this difficult circumstance. I've never been to therapy before, so I'm scared, but I believe it will be useful to me. For the time being, my main focus is on my career and studies. I have a large project coming up at work, and I'm determined not to let all of this family drama distract me from my objectives. I'm also considering moving to a better apartment. I've been saving, and I think I'm ready for my own house without roommates. Thank you for your continued support. It is reassuring to know that there are people out there who understand and care, even if we have never met. I'll offer an update if anything significant changes. Update 2. It's been about a month since my last update, and I'd like to share some developments. I've been following the boundaries I've set with my family. We've received a few phone calls and text messages, but nothing too serious. It's been fine. Awkward at times, but not as painful as I anticipated. My parents have usually honored my wishes. They check in every now and then, but they never ask for more than I'm willing to supply. I can tell they're trying hard to rebuild trust, but it's a slow process. My mother calls once a week, as promised. These calls were difficult at first, with long silences, but they are getting easier. We normally talk about neutral topics like her work at the hospital, the weather, and my online education. It isn't much, but it's a start. My father has been sending me short emails, usually just to check in or share anything he thinks I might be interested in. Last week, he forwarded me an article about a new business opening in our town. It was a small gesture, but it reminded me of how he would clip newspaper articles for me. Gemma struggled with the barrier I'd put up between us when we were younger. She sent me several lengthy, emotional texts apologizing and begged for the chance to make things right. I replied simply, saying that I needed more time. It's challenging, but I'm determined. I know she is hurting, but I am not ready to deal with her emotions on top of mine. The big news is that I've started treatment. I found a counselor that specialized in family trauma, and we have had a few sessions thus far. It's been challenging to bring up all of my prior grief, but I believe it's helping. My therapist is helping me deal with my anger and trust issues, as well as teaching me how to set healthy boundaries. In our most recent session, we spoke about how the incident with the ring represented more than just an accusation, but also years of feeling like I didn't measure up to Gemma's successes. It's made me realize that there were issues in our family dynamic long before the ring incident, and that healing will include addressing them as well. One unexpected outcome of all of this is that I've become closer to my friends, particularly Ryan. They've been really supportive throughout this journey. Ryan even volunteered to accompany me to future family gatherings as moral support. It's taught me that family is more than simply blood. It's about who helps you when things go tough. Work has provided a welcome distraction. I've dedicated myself to my profession and even obtained a tiny promotion. I am now in charge of inventory management for my shift, which entails more responsibility and a small pay raise. It's wonderful to have something enjoyable to focus on. In terms of my living situation, I have opted to remain where I am for the time being. It isn't much, but it is mine and represents the independence I've worked so hard for. My parents tried to assist me locate a better situation, but I declined. I need to accomplish this on my own. However, I began to really investigate options for furthering my education. A state college about an hour away offers night classes. I'm considering applying to their business program. It would be a major transition, but I believe I am ready for it. Overall, I am taking things one day at a time. Some days are harder than others. There are times when I miss our effortless connection as a family, but then I remember how quickly they turned on me and understand I can't rush this. My therapist believes it is healthy to have mixed views about everything. She advises me to be patient with myself and to avoid feeling obligated to forgive before I am ready. We're developing strategies for dealing with impending family reunions and holidays, which are making me more nervous than I'd like to admit. For the time being, my top objectives are recovery and building a life I can be proud of, whether with or without my family. It's not easy, but I am optimistic about the future. I'm learning that it's okay to prioritize myself, and that setting boundaries does not make me a bad person. Thank you for your continued support. Your comments and texts have given me courage during this process. It's good to know that I'm not alone in dealing with family issues like these. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my original post, so I figured it was time for a last update. A lot has changed during the previous few months. The biggest news is that I've decided to move to a different location in quest of a new job opportunity. It is a huge advancement in my career, and I am excited about the new chances. The employment is with a logistics company, and the tasks are similar to those I performed at the warehouse, but on a much greater scale. It's a management position that I've been working toward for a while. The salary is significantly better than what I was earning previously, plus it includes benefits like health insurance and a 401k plan. Before making this decision, I had a long discussion with my therapist. We discussed how this move will affect my healing process and my relationship with my family. Finally, we agreed that this may be a positive experience for me, an opportunity to truly stand on my own 2 feet and establish myself outside of the family drama. I notified my parents of the transfer last week. They were surprised and unhappy, but they expressed their understanding. My mother cried a little, saying she had hoped we'd have more time to repair our connection before I left. My father was more stoic, but I could see he was disappointed too. They were both apprehensive about me being alone in a foreign environment, but I assured them that I would be fine. Gemma took it the hardest. After I told her, she arrived unannounced at my flat, pleading with me not to leave. She acknowledged that she thought she was losing me all over again. It was a difficult conversation, but I stood my ground. I advised her that I needed to do this for me, and that our connection was not such that her view could influence my decision. Our relationship is improving, but it's not ideal. We've had several family dinners in recent months. They've been uncomfortable and awkward at times, but we're gradually adjusting to being around each other again. Trust is a key concern. I occasionally question their motivations, wondering if they actually believe what they say or if they are merely trying to alleviate their guilt. My therapist has been invaluable throughout this. She's helped me understand my feelings and set boundaries. She has stated that forgiving does not involve forgetting or pretending that the pain never occurred. It's about letting go of my anger so that I can achieve peace of mind. I've taken that to heart. While I doubt I will ever forget what happened, I am working to forgive my family, not for their sake, but for mine. It was difficult to hold my anger and hatred, and I'm ready to let it go. As I prepare for this relocation, I have been reflecting on all that has happened. 3 years ago, I felt my life was over. I had lost everything, including those I cared about. But now I realize how much I learned from that experience. I'm stronger, more independent, and have a better sense of my own worth than I ever have. I'm not sure what the future holds for me and my family. We plan to stay in touch after I relocate, with weekly phone calls and visits during the holidays. It's a start. Perhaps with time and distance, we can create something new. For the time being, my attention is directed towards the future. I am excited about my new job, the new city, and the opportunities that await me. I've started searching for apartments online and researching the area where I'll be living. It's a mix of excitement and trepidation, but I'm mostly looking forward to this new chapter in my life. Whatever happens to my family, I am confident I will be fine. I've proven to myself that I can handle whatever life throws at me, and I've discovered the importance of surrounding myself with people who believe in and support me, whether they're related or not. Dad said, "You're not going to college," and gave my future away to my brother. But 6 months later, they were begging me to come back. I worked my whole life for it, my college fund, my dream. But when I finally held that letter, my dad said, "You're not going." And then he gave my future away to my brother. What did I do? I left. But 6 months later, they were begging me to come back. This is my story of survival. It wasn't a spectacular shouting match as in movies on the day I found out. No, the fact that it was silent, chilly, and almost informal made it worse. I recall the fragrance of Dad's coffee burning on the warmer as I stood in our living room, the air stale from the summer heat. I was holding the acceptance letter from my ideal college and smiling foolishly. This was the result of 4 years of avoiding trouble, working weekends to keep busy, and persevering through school. Mom's eyes seldom left her crossword puzzle. Dad didn't even get out of his chair. After taking a sip of his coffee, he simply stated, "Yeah, about that. You're not going." Initially, I chuckled. I assumed he was joking, perhaps a horrible joke. There was a college fund, he and Mom had always said. They had made the same vow every birthday, report card ceremony, and awkward family meal since I was 12. "You work hard, son, and we'll make sure you get to college." I put a lot of effort into my work. While others avoided difficulty, I kept out of trouble. I told myself that the reward would come if I kept my head down, so I declined parties and skipped vacations. And now I just got a shrug as I stared at them with my letter quivering a little in my hands. Dad responded, "It's all gone. We gave it to James." James? My younger brother James? James who had never passed a class without cheating? James who wrecked 2 cars by the time he turned 17? James who could charm the socks off anyone for long enough to avoid real consequences? My lips opened, but I was unable to speak. Rather than breaking my heart, Dad stretched and sat back in his chair as if he had just concluded a long day of work. His words, "He deserves it more. He's got potential. He just needs a little help to get serious. You'll figure something out." After everything, I wish I could say I screamed, fought, and demanded to know how they could do this to me, but I didn't. As I stood there, I felt my heart slowly shatter as I realized that all of those years of sacrifice had been pointless and invisible to them. Without saying another word, I made my way upstairs, each step getting heavier. I located my old duffel bag, which I had used for middle school soccer tournaments, and filled it with my battered laptop, a few changes of clothes, and the small amount of money I had accumulated from my after-school jobs. Nobody made an attempt to stop me. Mother didn't look up. Dad remained in his seat. James must have been out someplace enjoying his new life with my future. I realized I had no idea where I was heading when I stepped out onto the porch, the cicadas buzzing loudly in the humid air. It didn't matter though, I was confident of one thing: I would never return. That first night, I spent the night in my car. There was no plan. There was really no strategy, just a numb autopilot version of me driving around in circles till the gas light on my ancient Civic flickered on. I felt smaller than ever when I pulled into a Walmart parking lot, reclined the seat back, and gazed at the cracked roof fabric. I kept thinking in the back of my mind that maybe Dad would at least text, maybe Mom would call, or something. However, my phone remained dark. Not a single message, no missed calls. The days that followed were a lengthy stretch of job boards, tinned soup, and sleeping with one hand on the door lock. I got gas money by pawning my old Xbox. I earned money under the table by dusting dusty warehouses and hauling furniture from moving companies, taking up day labor wherever I could. It seemed like everyone could smell my desperation wherever I went. Nevertheless, a small flame within me refused to extinguish. I couldn't get Dad's statement that James deserved it more out of my head. And it sparked something instead of giving up. A silent rage. Not the kind that induces wall punching, the type that requires you to construct something with your own hands as a sign of your existence. I discovered a flyer stuck to a dilapidated coffee shop's window. Space for rent. Cheap. No questions asked. It was a shoebox hidden behind a dilapidated strip mall, hardly larger than a storage locker. However, it had a roof, 4 walls, and a phone charging plug. When I mentioned that I didn't have the first and last month's rent yet, the landlord, a stern woman named Connie, didn't even bat an eye. All she said was, "You hustle, you stay." So I hurried. I worked whatever jobs I could find during the day and drew ideas on scraps of paper at night so I could create something that no one could take away from me. I had nothing left to lose, hands that could work, and a mind that would not give up, even though I didn't have a college degree. I began selling reconditioned furniture, which I cleaned, painted, and listed online. People purchased them, sometimes quickly, sometimes for more than I dared dream, but it wasn't glamorous. I was still subsisting on ramen and peanut butter from the dollar store, but gradually, hope started to stave off the gloom. And I said nothing about it. No calls home, no social media posts, and no contacting anyone who could have questions I wasn't prepared to respond to. In order to prevent anyone from stomping it out before it had a chance to breathe, I intended to nurture this monster in the dark. James was already in the news a few states away, but not in a positive way. It started out as whispers. I received a message from a neighbor in my former town that said, "Hey, your brother got in some trouble at school." The title of a local news report that appeared on my cracked screen read, "College freshman suspended after fraternity vandalism incident." With my heart racing, I clicked on, and there he was. James, in a grainy picture, smiling foolishly in front of a ruined student lounge, spray paint can still hanging from his hand. The boy who was more deserving. I didn't grin. I refrained from boasting. I just shut down the article, switched off my phone, and resumed my job. Because I realized at that point that they had placed all of their money on the wrong son. And they were about to discover it. 6 months to the day after my departure, it took place. At first, I was completely unaware of it. With my headphones on and the smell of varnish strong, I began sanding down an antique coffee table. As usual these days, I had my phone buried in my backpack, forgotten for hours at a time. However, I saw missed calls when I eventually took it out to see the time. 1, 2, 8, and finally 1. All from Mom, Dad, and even James, the same folks who had witnessed me leave without saying goodbye. I spent a long minute looking at the screen. A part of me wanted to throw the phone down a storm drain, block the numbers completely, and act as though they didn't exist. However, curiosity prevailed. I opened the most recent voicemail. Mom's voice, little and tremulous. "Sweetheart, we need to talk, please. Things are bad. Just call us back, okay? We miss you. We miss you." It seemed as though she was speaking a different language because of the unfamiliar vocabulary. I listened to the following message while reclined on the concrete floor of my small shop, which I had constructed piece by piece with my own 2 hands. "Dad, rough and clumsy. Listen, son, it's time we, put the past behind us. Your brother's had a rough patch. The family needs you. The family needs you." If it weren't so pitiful, it was almost humorous. As I continued to browse, I came upon James, who was the most desperate of all. "Bro, I screwed up. Okay, I know you're mad, but can you just come home for a little while, please? Mom's freaking out. Dad's losing it. We need you, man. The boy who was more deserving. The pleading golden child. I didn't return the call. I didn't send a text. Rather, I polished every item of furniture I had prepared for the market that weekend. Humming along to the soothing music in my earbuds, I remained up till midnight. No recollection of home had ever been as reassuring as the steady scratch of sandpaper across wood. Out of habit, I accessed Instagram the following morning. And there it was. James's face appeared once more, but this time without a smile, on the local news page for my hometown. Former student expelled after financial scandal, police investigating. What I instinctively knew was clarified by the article. James spiraled after being suspended. Bad decisions were made one after the other. Fake GoFundMe pages were created and made public, and student loans were blown on parties. He believed that his friends would cover for him, but they turned him in instead. The last illusions my parents held on to had vanished along with the Golden Boy's empire. They now required a new rescuer. And they somehow believed it could still be me after everything, after taking my future and giving it to someone who set it on fire. The irony is that I no longer felt angry at all. Simply free. They were attempting to contact a non-existent person. The silent backup plan, the safety net, the faithful son. 6 months ago, that person vanished after packing an old duffel bag, and he would never return. I took my time responding. Actually, I didn't respond at all. Not initially. The calls continued to come in the days that followed. Mom changed strategies, sending lengthy texts that were chock full of old photos from Christmas mornings, birthday celebrations, and trips where we all wore matching t-shirts. Like what they'd done might be undone by nostalgia alone. Dad was less tactful and left a string of angry voicemails. After everything we sacrificed for you, your brothers, and your blood, how dare you disregard your own family? James even attempted to prove guilt. Come on, man, you can't just leave us like this, you're better than that. Better than what? Superior to a family that only knew my name when they were in danger? They built a chasm and tossed a rope across it with each message, hoping I would be desperate enough to take hold. However, I no longer felt desperate. I was doing well. My small furniture company wasn't that small by then. I had recurring clients. Every week, additional orders had been brought in by a story in the local daily. People genuinely admired me for what I created, not for what I could do for them. Just myself, no safety net, no freebies, no college fund. My stomach turned at the idea of returning to that place and sitting at the same shabby kitchen table where Dad had previously assured me I wouldn't be leaving anyhow. I wasn't upset. I wasn't resentful. I was finished. I finally took a call one evening, but it was only to shut the door, not to argue or explain. Mom's voice was brimming with optimism. Honey, oh thank God. We've been so worried. We just want to talk, that's all. Maybe you can come by this weekend. I awaited her completion. Then I spoke in a quiet, low voice. No. The line crackled into a piercing quiet. Mom made an effort to become better. What? What do you mean, no? When I said, I'm not coming back. Not for a visit, not for a talk. Not for anything. Sweetheart, please. We're family. I grinned, but not in a nice way. No, you were a family when it was convenient. Now you're just people I used to know. I didn't flinch when I heard her choke on a sob. You made your choice when you gave my future away like spare change, I replied. And now I'm making mine. I hung up the phone before she could answer, before the tears, apologies, and promises could start streaming down her face. After a moment of staring at the screen, I switched the phone off. Like severing the final strand of a life that had been trailing behind me like a broken kite, it felt lighter in my hand. I stepped out onto my small, rented shop-turned-home's porch. The sky was streaked with scarlet and gold as the sun was sinking. The quiet buzz of traffic and the scent of freshly cut lumber filled the warm air. The scent was one of liberation. I stood for a long time, absorbing everything. The boy who had yearned for their approval for years wasn't me. I wasn't there to protect them from their poor choices. Standing on firm foundation that I had created for myself, I was me. I came to the realization that I no longer needed to flee the past as I turned to return inside to the life I had created without them. I had made it through that. And the best retaliation of all was survival, beautiful, quiet, and steadfast survival. You expect it to feel like a war when you walk away. You prepare for remorse, guilt, and second thoughts to gnaw at you through the night. However, none of that materialized. I only sensed silence. The excellent kind, Not the acrid, harsh sort. It's like standing in a field after a storm and breathing clean air for the first time. For a long time, I believed that love required giving up something in order to give them more room. Giving till all that's left is the hope that they'll notice. However, true love doesn't urge you to vanish. Your dreams are not given to someone else and referred to your family. I had no obligation to explain myself to them. I had no obligation to give them another chance. Being free was something I owed to myself. And I made that precise decision. Listen carefully. You are not selfish for selecting yourself if you are reading this and you find yourself in my shoes, standing at that fork in the road, debating whether to remain faithful to those who wouldn't blink if you vanished. When you leave someone who only remembers your value in times of need, you are not being harsh. Because you grew weary of showing that you were worthy of love, you are not broken. Even if they never stated it, you are sufficient. Particularly if they didn't say it, and sometimes letting go of someone who made you question whether you ever earned it is the best act of self-love you can do. I didn't look for updates, but even when you don't ask for them, life has a weird way of delivering them to you. I learned that things at home had quickly fallen apart from an old neighbor a few months after that last contact. James's debts did not miraculously vanish after he left school. Dad had drained the college fund for him, and it was long since gone. What about the humiliation? None of them had anticipated how long it would remain. Dad's truck had to be sold. At the grocery store on the outskirts of town, Mom got a second job. James continued to believe that the world owed him something despite his repeated poor choices. They made an effort to keep the facade intact, but you can only cover up flaws for so long before the entire house falls apart. And me? I was too preoccupied with negotiating new contracts, sanding tables, and growing the small business into something substantial. Peace, no boasting, no retaliation. The world's sweetest sound. The things you notice when you're free are odd. It feels different in the mornings. Not heavy, not hurried, simply peaceful. The kind of silence that allows you to hear your own thoughts once more. I got a better rental. It was small but tidy, and there was a small piece of grass in back where I could sit and observe the passing scenery. Down the stairs, nobody was yelling. No insulting remarks during meals. Me, breathing, without regret. The company expanded more quickly than I had anticipated. Mostly word of mouth. After one consumer told a buddy, the friend would tell two more. Before long, I was earning actual money rather than just getting by. Enough to comfortably pay the bills, but nothing spectacular or worthy of a headline. Enough to begin saving? Enough to look forward to a future that seemed like mine at last. I began to attract regular customers who came for the person behind the furniture as well as the furniture itself. One afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. Harris, a couple, came in to pick up a personalized table. After shaking my hand and grinning, they remarked, "You should be proud. You're building something real that matters." And that struck me more deeply than I had anticipated because, for the first time, I was viewed by someone as someone who mattered because of what he had chosen to become, not as a last resort or backup plan. I was no longer required to prove anything. Not even to myself, not to strangers, nor to my family. I was sufficient enough already. Everything they attempted to control over me, their love, their money, their approval, no longer owned me, not even the college fund or the hollow promises. It didn't. For a short while, they simply led me to believe it did. Freedom doesn't feel like fireworks, which is funny. It doesn't come with a big budget movie scene when you scream into the heavens and throw your arms in the air. It's softer and quieter than that. You'll never let it go again, though, once it becomes ingrained in your bones. Freedom appears to be a leisurely Sunday morning. Sitting in a workshop that smells like sawdust and promise, drinking awful coffee from a chipped cup. The realization that you don't have to answer the phone just because someone asks you to is what it is. It's going into a store and purchasing a modest item for yourself that you want rather than need, without second-guessing yourself or feeling guilty about it. It's giggling. Without looking over your shoulder to see whether someone is about to interrupt, you're giggling uncontrollably. I began to make friends who were unaware of my past. Individuals who did not wear the outdated assumptions around their necks like chains. I had another dream. I'm breathing in front of you in a way that feels solid and possible, rather than the desperate way I used to, clutching to someday like a life raft. I had aspirations of purchasing my own building, growing the store and teaching other children, the ones that everyone had given up on, how to believe in themselves and create something with their hands. I stopped waiting for an apology that would never come, and I didn't even realize it at the time. I no longer required their presence. In actuality, those who loved you only when you were helpful to them were never truly your family in the first place. Family is more than just kinship. It's family. Even if they are just standing quietly in your corner, holding space for your goals, family is the one that cheers you on when no one else does. I have no idea what James is doing at the moment. I'm not sure whether Dad still sits in that old recliner and looks at the TV, acting as though he hasn't thrown away his true heritage. I'm not sure if Mom still looks at my vacant seat on holidays, wondering when I'll return and act as if nothing had happened. I don't care, to be honest. I now have a table and a seat of my own. And I don't see any of the things I built, friends, clients, and the serene calm of knowing I made the right decision, missing when I look around at my life. I simply see myself, at last, completely free. If I've learned anything, it's that you don't have to remain in an environment where you aren't respected. Love that ought to have been offered freely doesn't have to be earned by bleeding yourself dry. Sometimes just walking away and continuing to walk is the bravest thing you will ever do. I didn't have the life I had anticipated. I have something better. A life of mine. They will never touch the future. Something they will never comprehend. And that's sufficient.